Okay guys, so talking about the France-Scotland game, 27-10 to France. France will be ecstatic with that win, but just, you have to think this was backs against the wall for France. If they had another dismal performance, they'd have been probably dropped, if they'd been pilloried, it would have just been awful for them. So it took a backs against the wall disaster to get this sort of emotional response, and they got it, and their commitment was excellent. But anyway, two sides wanted to play. France and Scotland both want to throw the ball around, and it made for an exciting game. Both sides at time overplay the ball for sure. Both sides make mistakes. But I don't think the big sides in the world, the kind of like your Irelands, your New Zealands, will actually be too worried by what they saw, because if you could pin each side tactically in their own half, force them to overplay, I think they'd hope mistakes would come. So again, I don't think there's too great positives to read into that, although obviously France show what they can do when they have people in the right place. Individually they look great, the talent came through. I don't think they've got a huge amount of clever structure to fall back on. They're still looking just to play a bit too much, but that's what they're going to do. But if they can keep that emotional intensity up, then great. Whether they can do that, especially away from home, I'm not so sure. But anyway, Scotland played their shape, and they tried to play how they want to play. They play out the back a lot, they push the ball wide, but they've made far too many mistakes again, and they were just a little underpowered with running threats. There were some decent performances in there. Kinghorn's a fantastic player. Can't believe he didn't play the first game. I said in my videos, my selection videos, he has to play alongside Hogg, and hopefully I've made the point there that Kinghorn absolutely should play. I'd probably drop Maitland, Hogg, Kinghorn and Seymour as the back three. Maitland's just looked like he's over the hill a bit to me, to be honest. But they tried to play their shape and they just didn't have the running power, they didn't have the excitement apart from a couple of players. If you put Russell, Watson, Jones, Barkley into that team, then you're into a team that could play like that. But if they're going to play like that, they have to be the most skillful, the most accurate passing team in the Six Nations, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. And they're just not at the moment. So I think they have to keep going at that style. It's the one that suits them the best. It's what they've been practicing, so don't ditch it. But they need to work on their skills and become so skillful and so accurate. And they're just not there at the moment. Whether they can get there, I don't know. Can you improve your skills that quickly? With a full strength team, like with those players I mentioned, again, could be very different. I thought Scotland looked pretty nervous to start with, likes of Horne, understandably so, but they definitely looked a bit nervous. And they got a bit smashed up physically, and they couldn't, again, be accurate enough. So they were always going to struggle with their injuries, and they weren't accurate enough, they didn't have enough threat, and in the end France were just too good, especially in broken play. Their carries were just a bit bigger. But anyway, France are loose at times. Again, I said, their structure I don't think is really there if sides can contain their offloading. But you saw the talent, like I said, Dupont, scrum half, he's the number one easily. You've got to keep going with Intermac, I think. It looked more balanced, it looked better. They need to work really hard on their structures and their discipline. Their defence for when Horne went straight through, it was shocking. They do still have a shocker in them, but certainly a lot better. Can they do that again and again? So the next two games will tell us that for sure. Scotland is disappointing. Can they get a stronger side out for the last two games? And then can they execute that game plan? If they have two more games where, again, they're not skillful enough to execute their wide game plan, then there's big questions thinking, what do we do? Do we go simpler? Do we pick more boring, bigger players? Or do we just push on regardless? So it is a bit of a worry. If you're going to play all-court rugby, you've got to be some of the best players on the planet. And at the moment, they're not showing that. So anyway, questions there. Comment below, let me know what you think on that game. And until next time, I will see you then.